of treason, Obama being, one of them. But there's a lot of them in the intelligence agency that are guilty as well. Now, I can tell you that with the system that we have right now, they will not probably see justice as it is right now. There has to be some workaround that happens for these people to get justice. Now, in the meantime, because they came after President Trump with their legal system, you think that same legal system is going to convict them? Absolutely not. So there has to be some kind of workaround, and that workaround could be something, once it's revealed, would be like, of course. But at this point, it's not that easy. A lot of people think that they can be charged through a military tribunal. That's that for the world court, that's probably not going to happen, right? There's legally, I don't see any way that can happen, and maybe somebody can help me with that. But the legal system as it is, if they were to be tried in D.C. Now, I've been to a D.C. court, and I thought for sure that D.C. court, I thought my whole life, my whole career, 35 years, that we would have freedom, that we'd have great justice in the United States. I did not see justice at all. It was a travesty of justice in D.C. when I went there to watch and support someone that was a J6, being convicted from J6 crimes. So fortunately, when President Trump came into office, that grandmother, that was no way was she guilty of any crimes, but she had been convicted and she was going to go to jail. Fortunately, because of President Trump's pardon, she did not go to jail. Now, would Obama, with all the evidence there is, would he be convicted in D.C. With the leftist, people that would come in, jurors that would come in? Absolutely not. So there's no way that it can be done in D.C. It's kind of the same thing that happened with President Trump in, leftist Manhattan, New York. Looks like New York is getting ready to have a mayor that's a communist. So this is the kind of people that don't do justice, guys. They don't do justice. They have their thinking. Yes, they're Americans. Yes, they have grown up in the same culture that we have grown up, but they're not, I don't want to say they're not like us, but they're not like this audience for sure. But they're on a whole different program. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And like I've said many times, I don't see a civil war, but I think these guys in their cities are gonna find out, right? They're gonna find out what they brought. So they're gonna elect this communist. And there's even another one, and I think it's in if it's Michigan or one of those states up there. It looks like they're going to vote for a communist also for mayor in one of the cities up in Michigan. I just saw that recently. I had it saved in another computer. I don't have it on this one. So I'm up on another level. So I have like 3 levels in my lovely place. We have, as you guys see, lovely views of the lake, Lake Tahoe. But, I don't think that anything or not anything, but any court system is the way it is right now is going to support an Obama conviction of treason. So there will have to be, if we look at Obama was a president of the entire United States, all right, you got to see where I'm going with this. Another state maybe he could be tried in. What's the reddest state we got? And then all those other people. Let's play their game against them. All right. So they have been dragging us and President Trump into the most liberal cities and trying to convict us in these liberal cities. And for the J6ers, I don't know how many, it was like 1,200 or something, all convicted in DC, guys. There is no justice in DC. So let's play that friggin' game on them. Let's go to a nice state where everybody is very conservative, and let's try these M-uppers there, right? So you know they're going to jail forever or something else, right? For treason. I don't see these people being executed for treason, but I see them probably spending the rest of their advanced stages of their life in prison and never coming out. And they should not come out. They should never be given the opportunity to corrupt our country or any country anywhere in the world again, right? So this is going to be a process. Now, the biggest thing that I believe that we've seen, and the thing I think that is probably the most important, is the truth has come out. So with the truth out about these people being, trying to do a coup against our duly elected president, right? Yeah, there's like, Trump derangement syndrome with a lot of NPCs out there. But other than that, the people that actually have critical thinking support President Trump quite substantially. And there are some very good critical thinkers out there who don't like Trump, and that's okay. That's the way it's always been, in our system. You don't have to be, I would be surprised if everybody agreed with me on everything. Talk to my wife; she doesn't agree with me on everything. So, so we think a lot about alike. That's why we're together. That's why we've been together as long as we have been. So I think that America as a whole is like that in its best, that it can be. But we haven't been seeing that. We haven't been seeing that with, recently with the legal system. And that's why I've said for quite some time that this legal system, as we know it, has to be overhauled because it's being used as a political tool to go after people that don't agree with a certain line of thinking, like the Democrats, right? So Democrats have been very effective in grinding their way into every aspect of society, and it has to be changed. Now, what are the consequences for us going out? Now, they went after President Trump, deep state. Now, President Trump and I guess the White Hats or whatever their consortium of, good, honest, good, high integrity people that serve we the people and believe in we the people because they're part of we the people. What do they, see going forward? I can tell you what I see going forward. They're going to unleash the army that they brought in. All right. So I've seen these armies overseas. I've seen the ISIS armies overseas. Right. These are deep state armies, and they brought those armies here into the United States. There's something like 2 million Chinese that have come in. 2 million. We have like less than that in the entire military, and not all of them are war fighters. There's only a small fraction of people that are in the military that are war fighters. And then you have law enforcement. Not all of them are up to the task of war fighting. They write tickets for someone that's been speeding. That's they, and if push comes to shove, they could probably defend themselves. But as far as like carrying out offensive operations, absolutely not. They don't have a team, mindset, working as a team to take down a team of highly trained people. Because we have teams of highly trained people all over our country, all around our cities, Democrat cities, right? We've talked about this. I said this was coming 5 years ago. People asked me if we were going to Civil War. I said, no, but I see a lot of cities probably would go away, right? So now, so you're like, and I thought that maybe the Democrats in these cities, which they are now, would support these illegal aliens. Unbeknownst to them, many of them are part of, cartels. They're part of, terrorist organizations, all kinds of evil, bad people that have come in. Democrats have been brainwashed into believing that everybody should have freedom to, have the American dream. Just come on in, we'll support that. So they've been NPC, most of them. There's some of them that have, some slight critical thinking, but for the most part, it's very obvious that Democrat Party and the Democrats that support that party are brainwashed. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I have to talk tough here. I have to talk tough. I have to say the hard things. That's my job as a leader, as someone that's seen this all over the world, as a war fighter, as someone that's worked in the intelligence community and in and around the intelligence community. So I have to say the hard things. Unless I and other people do that, then people don't know what situation that we're up against. It's incredibly, it's horrific, what we're up against. So, but not, I've done the impossible. Most of my life has been about overcoming impossible odds. And I don't think we're at impossible odds. I think we have, a lot of, everything's going for us really. And it's continued to evolve in a good direction. Now, a lot of people that are want their emotions served and massaged and patted, that have never been in combat, that have never been to the point where their lives are in danger, they want to know exactly what the White Hats are doing. That's ridiculous, right? Because these operations, as I've been involved in them most of my life, they're very secretive. The only reason why you would know a fraction of what's going on is so that there is some support, and not everybody's turned against them. So no, he's not. So I don't know where he's at, but he's not here. So I'm or he is now. Yep. So we have someone that's coming in that can help answer some of these questions. He has been with us for many years, almost as long as I have been on YouTube, talking about these things. Juan has been there too. And Juan, in the early days, came on many people's shows. He still does. And, I always appreciate it when he wants to come on and share some stuff. And so here he is now. Juan, how are you doing?
Hey, good. I apologize. I was a little bit late, but good to see you there, bro.
No worries. I warmed up the audience for you. I did the opening. Well, I didn't tell you were coming either, so maybe we'll have a good long show.
Yeah, no, I'm wide open, and I actually should have walked down to the street. The Capitol's just over here, 2 blocks away. I was going to do that, but I had a dead phone. Now it's charged. But
oh, good.
I probably could go down there and show them all the sites. But I'm tired. I'm telling you, I've had such a long last couple of days, and so it's kind of comfortable to sit here and watch. They're having a pool party over here on the next building over.
Nice.
And
yeah, DC. I was just talking about DC. How we're not going to get justice there. We didn't get justice for the J6ers. You're not going to get a jury that's picked anyone of treason there.
Mm-mm. Well, one thing too. I think we did a couple of shows when I used to get to stay over at the Trump Hotel.
I love those shows. Those were fantastic. Yeah.
And
that's
of course,
when you first started talking about AI and bots and all that stuff, and I was like, "What?"
Yep.
Now everybody knows about it. But you were cutting edge on that. Good job.
Well, and I miss that environment. That was such a fantastic hotel. I just I enjoyed it, but such is life. There's other places around here, but anyway, I hope your audience is feeling pretty encouraged.
Yeah.
You had early in the week, you had all this, gosh, there was a bunch of hosts. I'm done with Trump. He's not doing the Epstein stuff. He's not forcing it. He's helping and he's in the cover up. And And then by the end of the week, they hear, what's going on with Tulsi and her releases going after Brennan and Comey and Obama and like that. And then they got to think about it again. I think, I hope, within your audience, people weren't that mercurial that they were ready to flush Trump just because it wasn't happening the way they thought it should happen instantly or something,
Yeah, we've learned just to stay focused and just be observant. So it's playing out real nice.
Well, okay, let me just right off the bat. We always enjoy talking all the different stuff, but for those that don't want to stick around the whole thing, let me give you the short thumbnail real quick. This week, as the week goes on, the intention is to bring out information concerning the stolen vote from 2020 and the attempts to manipulate the vote 2016 election, the Hillary one, some of the mischief that was done there. So you're going to get a window into the Russia thing and the continuation of the Russia thing during the Trump administration was the lead up where all of these same players were trying to engineer a situation where they could steal the vote just as happened and get Biden into office in collusion. So you're going to hear about vote manipulation. And just like there's criminal referrals need to happen with Brennan, Comey, Obama over at the Justice Department, you're going to hear about the need for criminal referrals related to vote stuff is what the scuttlebutt here is in Washington. And of course, Washington is, runs on scuttlebutt, but we've got it from multiple sources in the right places, and that appears to be, what is about to happen. We still haven't had a special prosecutor named, and there was indications it was going to be Matt Gaetz, and then it's shifted even during the course of last weekend, and there's two names there. I think one of them's the likely one for different reasons because they have a history that fits better. But that teaser is still out there that you're going to get a special prosecutor named, and that's going to change the direction of things again. So there's stuff looming, but those things probably to watch for. We're moving into not an arrest phase because the criminal referrals then look towards taking stuff to a grand jury handing down an indictment, and then coordinating those indictments. If you remember back on the Clinton stuff in the 90s, grand juries, the Ken Starr investigations and grand juries went on for long months. And I can tell you from behind the scenes, we were aware, because I was in Arkansas at the time, we were aware numerous times where the grand jury was presented evidence and handed down an indictment of Hillary Clinton, multiple indictments of Hillary Clinton. And we thought they would be served. And we were very aware of it. And in these, secret grand juries. And then they weren't served on Hillary. And Ken Starr said, well, I have prosecutorial discretion. And I don't think I could get a conviction on that information. So I'm not going to serve an indictment, an arrest warrant for Hillary, ask for one, and have her arrested because of that or other people involved. And you had some people, the McDougalls and others, that did end up being prosecuted, but never Hillary, even though we had stunning stuff there. And that's the risk, even with a special prosecutor. Would they do something similar here? Here's the difference. I'm just getting this out of the way early. Good. Because some people don't, they'll be fussing. You're not saying whatever. No. Okay, I'm getting it out of the way, and then we have to risk the conversation. The deal is the crimes that are being sent over by with the criminal referrals to the Justice Department from Tulsi Gabbard relate to the types of crimes: treason, sedition, um, collusion with foreign intelligence agencies and governments. She didn't say that, but that's part of this. Um, they really are not appropriate to be heard in front of a operation in the Justice Department. So those referrals can be hijacked, grabbed, moved at any time into the military justice system. Now, most times in American history, that has not occurred. It's a very, very, very rare occurrence, but it has happened. And in this case, because it's nation state level tax on America, including on the vote, and that's why Tulsi, with what's going to come out this next week, she refers to in the stuff that came out Thursday, Friday, the Russia hoax as treasonous and seditious. She said today in one of the talk shows she did interview on today. So that's even further than she went on Thursday, Friday. Within that continuing release that she is most likely going to do, China is going to be mentioned. Other countries, and China may not be mentioned in this week. It'll be Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, very intricately involved in the Venezuela-Cuba stuff, Serbia, and there's other countries involved, but I don't know that they'll come out right this second, including intelligence agencies from other countries that were aware and colluding in the way that the fix was in on the vote for 2020. So she'll expand related to the vote stuff. And because it's still early in the week, exactly what they choose to do, there's several places they could do stuff. But let me just add this, and I'm just getting this out of the way early in the conversation that people can go away if they don't want to listen
No,
to
this
the
is
rest of the
fantastic.
show.
Because I thought there was no way they
Well-
were going to get it military tribunal. I thought the best we might get is like a maybe some conservative state where we get a good jury, you know. But this is fantastic.
No. In fact, a tribunal is the only way that you can get to proper justice when you're talking this level of treason and sedition. And let me just add one thing before I forget it. Here's part of the reason why a tribunal is the only place to go. I'll hit it from two directions. Number one, when Kash Patel first sent material over to Grassley a couple weeks ago concerning the fraudulent driver's licenses that whistleblowers in FBI and intelligence agencies separately, real Americans lost their jobs over this as intelligence officers in three-letter agencies. When Comey testified before Congress that there was no sign of foreign interference in the coming 2020 election. He did that in July of 2020 when Congress was asking if he saw any signs of foreign interference in the coming election. He says, no, we're not seeing anything at all. Whistleblowers stepped forward. They were livid. And they said, we are monitoring our spies' assets are putting their lives on the line in China and conveying information to us. Our intelligence officers working here in the country are tracking not thousands, but over 1 million at least, closer to 1.5 million driver's licenses and IDs that are being created in China, tied to specific addresses in the U.S. in critical locations where states were in the balance for the 2020 election to make sure they had enough people and for certain races. here in the States. And it's a pretty complex thing. You had to have a driver's license that shows an address within a certain voting district so that they could go to a vote center and vote and have a name and an address that fit the voter rolls in that area so they could vote 2 or 3 times, okay? And very sophisticated operation. The one that was actually released was only a small sliver, it was like 20,000 driver's licenses exposed in this fraud, and it was up in Illinois. The people involved, both the assets, an asset is not an officer within, say, CIA. There's someone who is a known, trusted person that when they're called an asset, confidential source, they are even assigned a number. And so they become a numbered confidential source within the intelligence system. And that's why I tease a lot of times, CIA officers, file clerks. All the real work is done by contractors and assets, okay? They just pick the information up from under the bridge or something, okay? It's not the same thing. There's a few of them that do real serious work, but it's not actually the norm. And, that's why we have terms like NOC, non-official cover, and things like that. So people put their lives on the line to get information into the US system about China doing stuff to engineer the way the vote went in America. And it wasn't being done, over just a few days or weeks or a little operation. This took years of data mining, preparation, putting up a network to sift those licenses into, people to handle them and sift them out to all the players within that specific region, with faces and ID and all sorts of things to make it work. It was a very, very sophisticated operation. People put their lives on the line, their careers on the line, and when Comey went into Congress and lied, knew exactly what was going on and lied, knew that China had a huge intelligence operation going on to affect the vote across the country with stolen IDs, fraudulent IDs, stolen names. And he lied to Congress with a straight face and a smirk about no foreign interference in the election. Other people of conscience that were in the position who knew what was going on said, "Fuck you, you stupid ass," and whistle blew. And what was the FBI's response? And the CIA's response, Brennan and Comey? They sent messages out to all the offices involved, system-wide. If you have records concerning Chinese interference with false IDs, etc., don't hide it. Destroy it. Seriously, destroy it. Destroy any evidence that China was ever interfering in our 2020 election. Now, that's treasonous.
Yeah.
That's collusion because they were helping an enemy not to get caught interfering in our election. Okay? Election fraud is considered in the same vein as a nuclear attack, a biological attack. It's a weapon of mass destruction because if you get somebody into power who's not the will of the people, they can do all sorts of things that affect populations across the world. And if you're talking about the most powerful office in the world as the commander-in-chief and the president, you handle the dispatching of armies, medical, the State Department, and relations, all sorts of things. And it can help or hurt millions, could kill millions. And that's exactly what happened because as they got Biden into office, and pushed the whole COVID thing. Remember, COVID,
Excellent point. Yep.
this is a hard thing for people to get their minds around.
Mm-hmm.
COVID was part of a plan to seal the deal by the globalista to take over the entire world through this fraud of COVID tied to elections. You can't all come into a room. You've got to vote remotely. You've got to put it in a drop box. We're going to make it easier for you over time. You're going to be able to vote on your cell phone. With all the things you know about digital frauds, do you think that you would ever get an honest vote again if you were voting on your cell phones? Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, we have security. We have this and that. It's going to be just great. No, it isn't. So now I come back to why do I tie COVID into these conversations about prosecutions? The prosecutions that are necessary must and can only ultimately be done in a military tribunal setting, a Nuremberg type setting, because this wasn't just about mere criminality for money or for power and control. The people involved participated in a genocide, planetary genocide.
Wow.
People in this audience lost mom, dad, a cousin, sister, brother, child.
Everybody. Friends. Yep. Everybody.
And it wasn't just here in America, it was across the world. The people that we have in physical custody right now here in the United States who actually flipped the vote in 2020, who I have told you about, they have said, they've testified, they've been on in their recorded statements, in the interviews that are done by people this audience would know the name of instantly. They have told repeatedly that in their work over the last couple of decades across the world, manipulating votes, they have put leaders into power in 71 countries plus the United States. People that weren't the will of the people in that country. And they've shifted the attitudes, the opinions, who gets to be in power by degrees, over and over and over and over by degrees, into their globalist leaders. And they've changed the rules in war, in banking, in health, to help put together this engineered takeover of planet Earth. The goal wasn't just to take over America, it was to neutralize America while they take over the rest of the world. And they'll come back and deal with America later. And by the way, had they got their way, had not Trump won office, remember within those military operations groups that monitor populations, they projected that 90% of the American people would be dead by 2030.
Wow.
That was their projections. On their way in a Georgia Guidestones type of a system, towards only having 500 million people left on planet Earth. But who were that 500 million? Their families, their groups. They wanted all the rest of us dead. This COVID thing was far bigger. It wasn't, even the COVID's not the real threat, it's the shot itself. Because they weren't just going to have one. You were going to have a vaccine passport. Remember I talked about that early on, vaccine passport? They wanted us to have a vaccine passport initially between countries. Then it'd be between states. Then it'd be between counties. You might have a couple of states that say, we're not going along with this. The governor's not, going to do this. You're not going to get away with it. Okay, well, you're not coming into a neighboring state because our governor says you got to have that. And you better have your card to show you did it. That's why I went out and did the stuff, took doctors, attorneys, sports people, military, and we spoke all over the country to explain that they didn't have to take the shot, and there was great danger in taking the shot. Please don't take the shot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people thought again and saved their own life. But all of that to say, you cannot separate a stolen vote from the murder and mayhem, which we are still going through, tied to the COVID shot, and that tied to China. China is the one that supervised the. Sorry, I've been talking all day. China's one that supervised the theft of the election 2020 and elections all over the world, including the situation going on right now in North Korea. China's heavily involved. Getting some more stuff out of the way real quick. I have a lot going on in Central Africa, and China has been heavily involved in stuff. So the president of the Congo was supposed to come over to America this coming Friday and meet with President Trump on Saturday. And ambassador from the Congo and a bunch of the people around the president were all supposed to fly in yesterday. We were all going to meet here in D.C. in the week prior to this meeting with President Trump. And before they could leave, they got word, and they were supposed to come here back when we had the big military parade over a month ago and meet with Trump the day after the military parade here in D.C. because the Congo situation is far more important than most people comprehend. They just, out of mind, out of sight. They don't have a clue, whatever. Within Trump world, President Trump wants to stop feeding the demons with blood. It's kind of it's a spiritual thing. It's a concept thing. Bad guys all over the world, the tyrants, the true tyrants, the worst of the tyrants, they occupy places where death is common. Life is cheap. And in trying to bring some type of hopefulness, beauty, life, business, prosperity into the world, you got to stop feeding the demons. And that means stop the murder, stop the mayhem, stop the, death. When Zelensky came over, Trump had Zelensky and Putin agreeing that they were going to have a ceasefire, and then they'd work out a peace deal and begin the rebuilding of Ukraine and Russia there, where all of this had happened. But you first have to have a ceasefire. When Zelensky got here, before he got here, you had American people within the military system, and you had people in England and France and the NATO system who had coached Zelensky that he can't do the deal with Trump that he was going to do. He cannot enter into a ceasefire. It had to be a peace deal. If Russia didn't agree to a peace deal and the terms that Zelensky wanted to dictate right off the bat, then you can't agree to a ceasefire. Trump's attitude was, let's stop the killing, which at that moment was about 1,000 a week on each side. 8 to 10,000 a month total, which was less than it had been. You have about 3 million people dead in Ukraine at that point in time, total civilians and military. And just go into a ceasefire, and then we'll work out terms of peace. Zelensky gets advised by everybody involved, don't do it. You can't stop the fighting until you get the right deal, or you won't be able to get terms that are favorable to you. So he walks into the White House, he's got Napoleon complex, and he, saunters in there, and then he's going to tell Trump what the terms are going to be for the deal, and that we can't do that, and so we're not going to do that. And Trump is like shocked. It's a ceasefire. Just stop the killing and we'll work the deal, and we'll back you up, make sure it's a good deal. America's here. You've got plenty of resources. We'll help you rebuild. You're going to pay for your own rebuilding. Why? Because you, in part, you're the ones that egged these people on and did it with Russia. And so you're going to have to pay for your part. Russia's going to have to pay for its part. It was contributory. But you got plenty of resources. We'll help you make sure you have trade and protection, all that, and you'll be better than you ever were. Zelensky says, no, we're not stopping the shooting and the fighting until we get the right deal. And he stomps out of the White House. Where's he go? It's not even 24 hours later, he shows up in England, and he's there meeting with the prime minister and key parliamentary members, and they're saying, we're going to back you up, we're going to give you the money, you got to keep fighting. The people in France say the same thing. Other NATO partners, yeah, we got to keep the fighting going. And the war's on. And it kills a whole bunch of people. Trump was just trying to stop the killing, stop the blood sport, stop feeding the demons. And then let's try to figure out how to work a deal out. While you're fighting and killing each other, how you work a peace deal. All of your energy is going to protect each other, and they've been beating each other's brains in even harder. And then Putin, instead of backing off, he doubles down and quadruples down. And Trump says, hey, people think Trump's working with Putin. Putin's not dropping his guard. He's going in all in because, if Ukraine's not backing off, we're not backing off. And now you've got, massive more deaths and destruction. It's going to take even longer to rebuild. Trump's trying to slow down and stop the killing worldwide. That's the thing in the Yemen, where we went in and just bombed the shit out of the bad guys there in Yemen. And even Iran wanted to have these nukes so that they could, it's not just Israel. That's another thing. I apologize, Michael. I get going. It's hard to stop.
No, I love to let you run because you're like reveal so much.
Well, you do have to keep revisiting this history and try to put it in context. And so for a lot of people in this audience, you've been hearing this mantra over and over. I can't back Trump. He loves Netanyahu. He's just, he's a puppet of Netanyahu, blah, blah, blah. I'm being respectful. A lot of those people are our tribe, Michael. And yet they think we've lost our minds, that we don't see that Trump's being manipulated by Netanyahu. That's not at all true. That is a total fabrication and falsehood that's pushed by particular lobbies. Here in D.C., the largest lobby is the Jewish lobby. You know what the second largest lobby is? The Saudi Arabian lobby. Okay. And then you have other lobbies out beyond that. All these lobbies, they're great with their propaganda and their advertising and their back, conferences to push a certain narrative, etc. When Trump bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran, that wasn't Trump doing the bidding of Netanyahu. In fact, if you go back to when Trump went to the Mideast and did an arms deal with Saudi Arabia and another one with Qatar, what did he do? He got Saudi Arabia and Qatar to agree that they weren't buying Russian arms and Chinese arms with all that money they have. They're buying U.S. And when they do that, those agreements last for decades. If they're buying aircraft, they don't buy them and toss them away if the policy changes a few days later. They have to be serviced. They have to have spare parts. They've got to have technical training. Their pilots need assistance to learn how to fly these monsters. And they come here to the U.S. and they spend huge money. And once you have pilots trained, crews to service the aircraft, facilities built around certain types of American parts and engineering and spares and everything else. You don't flip that in an instant. And so if the U.S. has a policy concerning a region, you better be on board. You do something too far off the rails and all the spare parts don't come to you. You're out. So they were making a commitment that they were going to see their bread buttered by doing what the U.S. wants done in the Mideast for decades out into the future, and tying their ship of state to the fate of America and not to Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else, and sending their money over here. They saw America as the strong partner, not one of these others, including the BRICS countries. That was a really important thing. And it wasn't done for the benefit of Israel. It actually took away a lot of the cause from an Israeli Netanyahu perspective for ramping up their arms holding and stuff higher because of these threats from the region. The threat's reduced. We have control. Supplies and parts. And by the way, in the weeks, for about 2 weeks prior to Trump going over to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Netanyahu called and tried to get through to Trump multiple times a day. And Trump wouldn't take his calls. Netanyahu didn't want Trump to do these deals with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Take away some of the excuse for what he's doing. And Trump didn't even take the calls. He was going over, he was doing the deal. He did it, and looking at the bigger picture. Then when he had given Israel and Iran a 60-day window, figure it out, and work a deal, and we'll help you both out. They didn't get it figured out by 60 days. On the 60th day, Netanyahu had a vote in the it's not called Parliament. They're I forget what it's called. I can't believe I can't think of it this second. And Knesset, and that vote was a confidence vote for Netanyahu, and he won the confidence vote. So he stayed the leader of their government for the time being. Now, the reason that was very, very important was because when the Knesset voted a vote of confidence for Netanyahu, by law, they couldn't do another challenge to his leadership for 6 months. So he gets 6 months unopposed, no ifs, ands, or buts. Within an hour of that vote, then he had aircraft headed for Iran. And the 60 days were up that Trump had given Iran very, very vocally, very visibly, time to work out some kind of a deal with Israel. Iran wouldn't do it. Trump pushed hard. He says it's going to be bad if you don't work it out. He lets them go. They won't work out a deal. So once they bombed those first sites with the help, of Iranian operatives, the majority of the people of Iran, the fastest growing Christian population on planet Earth, by the way, the majority of the population of Iran is in opposition to their own government. And so they were assisting Israeli and American intelligence operations to take out all of these SAM sites that would have opposed those aircraft. And so as the aircraft were flying to Iran, as they were in the air, the missile defense systems on the ground in Iran were being attacked by drones, where locals had let the intelligence officers know the exact locations. And then there was a handful of scientists and military that were never going to back down. And drones took those people out very precisely and specifically. So in the first night, the first attack, there was about 70, I think it was 78 people that died. And there was, I think, maybe 5 people that died that were not the exact person that was targeted. It was that precise. So, no, the amount of indiscriminate, non-combatant type people that died in that first night was almost nothing. It was that surgical, that precise. All the aircraft returned safe. As it continued on, Iran wouldn't back off. Israel kept bombing away, and they had a chance to back off on the nuclear sites. In fact, we let Iran know in advance that they better get out of those sites. We were coming. And do you know that not one person died in the attacks on those 3 nuclear sites that we did? Nobody.
Wow.
And then there was people that came out because of the propaganda. The sites weren't completely destroyed. They can still have the bombs going in a couple of days, a week or 2, a month at the most. All this other bullshit. Well, if they had access to the actual things that they needed to put these places back together again, the underground structure could be cleaned out, repurposed, etc. But everything in there, pulverized, man. No way. And we've cut off the access for those materials to come back into Iran. So no, they're not going to be back up and running in a few days or a week or 2. With that in mind, Trump did that in large measure because he wants to stop the killing, the death, the murder, everything else. Well, what's Iran doing? They're in every place in the world that there's conflict. In the Congo, in Yemen, in Somalia. They're tied into stuff in Niger, in Nigeria. They're supporting stuff in South America. They got people teams. If you knew, I had conversations today about some of the groups that have infiltrated the United States. Make your hair stand on end. That are here loose in the States, and the work to identify and take them out. Which, by the way, Iranian operatives assisting Western intelligence, specifically the U.S., have helped us identify a number of people that would otherwise be called lone wolves or small cells that were an instant threat to America, and they've been taken out over the last couple of months. It's the people of Iran that are helping us, not Israel specifically, to protect the world. And one of the other ones, you know who you need to get on? You need to get Kurt Weldon on, former congressman. He's a good friend.
Okay.
I'll set you up for that this week, Michael, if you have time. Kurt Weldon, he was taken out by the same crew in many ways that took power in 2008. He was a congressman. He was on track. Over half the House members wanted him to be the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Former fire chief, 20 years in Congress. He'd been to Russia in the time period after the fall of the Soviet Union. Met with Putin, met with their intelligence people, was given tours of the inside of what's their version of our Cheyenne Mountain and other facilities. Saw all of their nuclear stuff in these locations. And you know that Putin and a number of the Russian hierarchy asked him to help work a deal with the U.S. government. At that time, it was Bush II, Bush Jr. in office. They were willing to work with us, not sell any kind of weapons to any other country in the world without first getting agreement from the U.S. that it was okay to sell those weapons to that country. And all they were asking for was help to deal with their nuclear situation, their materials and weapons and like that. And they were willing to work the deal. In the course of that conversation, which Kurt Weldon could tell you about. One of the things that they mentioned was that Iran, they believed, was the recipient. After the Soviet Union fell, you had nuclear weapons, including over in Ukraine and other satellite countries. One of the weapon systems that they were missing, that they had what they called demolition nukes, which were relatively small nuclear devices that could take out tens of blocks, a small area, but they had about 350 they made. They were missing about 200. Just think about that, missing 200 small nukes. And they wanted the U.S.'s assistance in tracking down those small nukes. And it was their belief at the time, and this is in that period prior to 9/11 and then just immediately after. It was their opinion, based on their own intelligence operations trying to track this down in the post-Soviet Union era, the post-Soviet era, that about 200 of them went to Iran. So when people talk about this nuclear stuff in Iran and all the things going on there, part of the context you have to have for the current moment is this. Putin, arguably one of his very closest friends, if not his closest friend, was General Krylov. General Krylov was the Russian general who was blown up by the motor scooter as he exited the building there in Moscow. And that could only have been engineered and timed with assistance out of NATO or Western intelligence.
Yep.
Okay, our systems here in the United States. Okay, a very serious allegation when you say that. Okay, when I say that, Krylov was killed, and what was it that he was doing that Putin only trusted him on the project to give him the straight story and to go all the way? And remember, this is in the context of Weldon being asked to come to Moscow 2 decades ago.
Wow.
And Putin's describing a problem with missing nukes, okay? And those nukes don't stay usable indefinitely. They have to be freshened up. There's certain technology materials that have to be refreshed or you'll get a fizzle. So 2 decades ago, we could have joined in with them to help them to locate those into Iran. That was rejected by George W. Bush and the people around him, okay? Weldon's in a key position to try and work to make that happen, and they did a fraud against him. They said that the FBI came out and raided his daughter's house and just took everything out of her, put it in boxes, everything else. The media, you know, Weldon's daughter's involved in some type of a scam, a cover-up, whatever. Weldon's going to be implicated. He's going to be taken out, and he loses his election. This is in the months prior to the election, kind of an October surprise type thing. Weldon loses the election. He was on track. He had over half the House members in letters saying that they wanted Kurt Weldon as the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And the problem in that post-COVID era, this is 2004, 5, 6. The problem with that was he was a fire chief before he became a congressman for 20 years. He was going to be able to do subpoenas and serve warrants to get information about 9/11. And as a former fire chief, and with his ties into all the fire people around the country and the people on the steel engineers, they knew that the 9/11 could not have occurred as it was purported, that things were being frauded. And he would then have the power as chairman of the Armed Services Committee to bring in the witnesses and prove that 9/11 was something other than what we were told. that could not be allowed to happen. So they did this fraud, like his daughter was involved in some criminality. The press was all over this thing, like, you know, he was going to be arrested and put in prison and all sorts of things, and it was going to ruin his time in office and blah blah blah. So what's he do? He loses his election, and then as soon as the election's over with, he goes up at his daughter's house. They have all the stuff they took. They never opened one box. She was never indicted. She was never charged with anything. They don't even know what it was that supposedly she did. Okay? It was strictly to manipulate an election to keep someone from coming into power who would have exposed all the fraudsters. If Weldon had become chairman of the Armed Services Committee, you would never have gotten Obama into office.
Wow.
Hillary would never have gotten to even beyond as a candidate in 2016. Okay, that
You know, I'm looking at it. Maybe you've mentioned this before. I've looked this over before. I kind of shared a little bit with the audience. He went up against Joe Sistak, who was a vice admiral who retired earlier in the year after a 31-year military career, and they dumped tons of money in this, and then they started a disinformation campaign like you're talking about. So they obviously, it was a hit piece. They did a hit job on him big time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm eating the last bites of my apple pie.
No cookies?
The cookie contest isn't over at Jen's site yet, by the way. If you got a good cookie recipe, you better go over to thejennifermac.com and put your cookie recipe in and see if you can win. It'll be a pretty cool prize system. But anyway, ends at the end of July. Kurt Weldon is so crucial in this big picture. Most people have no concept of who Kurt Weldon is in this whole thing. But here's the guy that if he had won one more term, 9/11 would already be fully exposed.
Wow.
He wouldn't have gotten Obama into office. It's that crucial. So then you come forward, okay.
Great.
Well, in this exact moment, here's the problem. Iran still has somewhere in their system, if Russia's correct, and I trust they're, correct on this, they still have 200 demolition nukes, small nukes. Now, if Trump hadn't gone in and blasted to smithereens those 3 sites, most people think of Iran with their missile system, firing a missile into Israel. They shot hundreds in there, but all you had to do is get one through, and they had done some stuff that got a few missiles through the dome. One nuke, could have done everything, but they probably wouldn't even send it in that way. They'd send it in by land somehow. They'd send it in on a ship. It didn't have to be a nuke in Israel. It could have been a nuke anywhere in the world. And there's a couple of them that are larger that are missing that are actually very, very, very disturbing. And I won't go into the details. I don't know that I have license to go into detail, but we know what's missing in those other 2, and it's very disturbing. And they would be much bigger, So, but from Kurt's side, think of Kurlov. Kurlov was trying to track critical materials that could refresh those 200 nukes. That was what his job was, and somebody wanted him dead because they couldn't afford to have any of those nukes be refreshed. It's easier for somebody in the Russian system to make the service parts correctly for those than it would be for somebody from an outsider situation. And here you have people trying to help you get to the bottom line of it. One of them gets taken out, the person who has personal relationship with Putin and some of the people there involved, that's Kurt Weldon. He needs to be in this conversation and to bridge through where we're not getting good communications between us and Russia right at this moment. And what Trump did, if Iran was trying to service those, he eliminated a key component that might allow them to be made usable again. What kind of James Bond scenarios could happen in the world? Our man Flint scenarios. If Iran just had a half a dozen of those in a usable condition, and
Yeah, it would be devastating. Juan, you're muted. I don't think you can see me. Juan, you're muted.
that was for the world's benefit. That was to stop Iran from being a threat in all these other places: Congo, Niger, Nigeria, South America, Washington, D.C. Come on, man. So saying that Trump is somehow Netanyahu's puppet, are you kidding me? Does Trump look like he's anybody's puppet? Get real.
So there's, that Kurt Weldon, I look forward to having a discussion with him.
I'll get him
Now,
on with you. I'll try to get him on this week with you.
awesome. Now, we know that, these cabal deep staters are going to be very angry with having their boy or their boys and maybe girl or two, exposed like they are now. The truth coming out on them for the world to see.
They're boy girls?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we're probably going to see some kind of pushback. Now we've talked about the American cities being attacked and so forth. What do you see anything going on with that?
By the way, before I go on, just for half a second,
Okay.
We have sometimes people do get confused. There's so powerful messaging and things going on in the world. I get all that. I did an interview with a young man transitioning in a college setting a couple months back. This is somebody that's known to me, actually a very beautiful person and a serious person, and I would say confused on some things, but not somebody that I would, put in a hate zone or anything like that. I enjoyed and have on numerous occasions, being around them, having the conversations and like that. Pray for them. And this person's partner. And in fact, some of the people that I had a family that was out in Vegas with us when we did an event last year. Just some of the neatest people, a couple, lesbian couple, they've been together like 35 years. Crap, you can't get, a lot of people in the world together for 3 to 5 years married, and they've been along together.
And that's what Roseanne was saying too. Her siblings, being together, both of them gay and being together for so long.
Well, and I dealt with the situation in the mid 90s. A young boy that was given out in foster care. I was very, very upset on this. He was actually flown from a western state to New York, lived in a small New York apartment with these 2 adult males, couple, and was raised by them, and as though he had some proclivities, and then came in contact with them kind of by chance because the situation was a situation. And I remember talking with the social worker on this, and I was pretty worked up about it, and other people were also. And the social worker made a comment. He says, "Look, I've looked at this situation so close. The kid was in a horrendous situation. He was of an age, I think he was 14 at the time, which is a very tender, vulnerable age. And I thought this was inappropriate, and I still do. However, the people he was placed with, there was love in the house. The boy, at least, was appreciated. He later married, has his own kids, was never interested in that lifestyle. But he himself made the comment that, compared to the situation he was in, that these particular people, and it could have gone a lot of bad ways, but these particular people did the best they could, gave him a lot of opportunities, and he wouldn't have probably been in the situation he was later in life if it hadn't been for them, and saved him out of a tough situation. So,
yeah, I grew up with a lot of friends, not a lot, but several friends that, their parents were, gay, and they were great. They were great friends. Their gay parents were great. I loved being around them. So for 50 years, and this is in Columbia, South Carolina, which is, pretty much a conservative place, but it's been accepted, all over the United States. So it's not a big
well,
deal.
I'm not dropping my guard on it. There's a lot of it where it's very inappropriate and off mark, but I am maybe trying to be a little slower to judgment on some of it. I'm just trying to say that, it's all over the map. You can have a heterosexual situation where the people are completely out of control, out of their minds. So to act as though it's that you're only safe in a heterosexual environment may not be completely accurate either. So I just, when you mentioned it, I thought I'd just take a second. I don't agree with the lifestyle. I'm not going to change my mind on that. I don't think anytime soon, and I wouldn't advise it. And I've had many gay friends who said they wouldn't wish it on other people because it's got all sorts of problems with it, and for whatever reason they're in it, and they feel locked in. And I'll pray for them. And I think that it's a deception. It's the devil has a hold of them in a horrendous way. But I don't have to attack them any more than I would want to have to attack somebody that was in some kind of a bizarre sexual situation that's on the heterosexual side or into Satanism or something like that. I try to have the conversation, get them to think again, and at some level, it's between them and the Almighty, and it's God's to judge. Christ didn't come into the world to condemn the world. He came in the world to provide a way of salvation and to make peace with God. And it's the devil that does the condemnation. And so I just, because your comment a minute ago and my thoughts, because I know those people are out there in both of our audience, I can still enjoy the company of people who are sincere and honest and have a difference of opinion. And, I don't think that lifestyle fits in a military setting. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think there's certain places, I don't think that the trannies on the sports field, as though they're men competing against women, I don't think that's appropriate. And I'm not backing off on that at all. So, but within the gay community, the history was that they were relatively reserved and not trying to be bombastic into forcing societal change, acceptance beyond some certain measure. And so I think even within the gay community that most of the people not all of them, are actually not looking for a fight and don't need it and don't feel the urgent need to do it. You know, one of the people who was a governor who was a friend very long time ago that was one of my first encounters with somebody in that arena, very powerful, kept it to herself, and I think actually did a pretty good job, was a Democrat, but did a pretty doggone good job and wasn't willing to put up with a bunch of the bullshit that others were trying to get in there with the politicalization. So anyway, that little, enough there. I want to make sure that, you know, we have people that see the world differently, that are still relatively very conservative, and that I will shoulder up with in a heartbeat on the battlefield in certain issues, and just agree to disagree on other ones, and I don't have to attack. So
That's good. I'm glad you went that direction. That needs to be said,
yeah.
and very few people do that. So appreciate that.
Well, and from our side, I can be very direct and say, look, I don't agree with it, and there's certain places that there's lines. I don't care if you're, you know, heterosexual or homosexual or 57 other sexes. There's certain, you know, the kids, that's a non thing, you know.
Yep.
I felt this young man being put in the situation in New York was grooming potentially. But the kid, when he was interviewed by the social worker, was very direct. There wasn't any of that. And then when I met with him later, there was none of that. And at the same time, I had you know, helped in some situations where we had numerous kids that were in supposedly, you know, married households, normal people, everything else, and they were horribly abused, horribly, and you know, given away in the system. So some of it is more that every situation has to be looked at and evaluated, and you know, we got to protect the children. That's the most important thing. You got to protect the children. If you can't protect the children, you want God's protection. Well, if you're not protecting the innocent, those that can't protect themselves, then what are you doing here? And part of, even with this young man that got placed with that couple, had there been more heterosexuals available, family situations, he would have gotten a better shot. You know, the last thing I'll say is that part of the problem with the whole child protective services system in America is, especially at that time in the 90s, and even up till now, although it's backed off a bit, they were just taking any kid for any reason they possibly could, because they were just confiscatory. And it was a jobs program and budgets for the courts and things like that. And it was just completely out of control. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to rein in. It still needs to be reined in here in America. But you wouldn't have the need for so many kids to be placed in unusual situations if they weren't taking so many for dumbass, stupid reasons. And some of the courts around the country and some states are still just wildly out of control. And that's something that has to be addressed and will be over the course of this administration. So anyway, a little diversion there. I'm sorry, I went way past your question you asked me, and I didn't answer it.
Yeah. So how do you see, you know, this pushback? There's going to be repercussions. Obviously, we always get repercussions.
Oh, yeah, within against what Trump's doing here. Look,
Yeah.
the one thing that I think everybody needs to understand, and so I gave you the meat at the beginning. Now it's the speculations. People want to leave, go away. And you know, I'm sorry. I tried to get the big stuff out of the way right off the bat.
That was beautiful. Very, very well done.
There's so many options, and you have to think repercussion by who. Look, if it's Iran, they've got cells here in the U.S. A lot of them came in through the Canadian border, not the Mexican border, and very, very dangerous, committed people. Are we aware of those threats? Yeah, actually, there's a number of them that we're pretty aware of that they're trying to track right now. Could one or more of them get through? Yeah. We are a big country. You know, there's no acceptable way of saying that they might get somebody, some family, some church, something else somewhere in the country. It's the sum of all fears moment. What if they just got one of those small nukes serviced and could detonate it somewhere? It's a sum of all fears type of situation. They get it in the right location, and it could be horrible. If they got one of the bigger ones in one of these locations, it could be horrendous. Will that happen? You know, I think it's a hand of God thing. When they tried to get the nuke off in Seattle on November 3rd of 2019, and from a globalist cabal situation, there were many of the belief, and I am also, that that had been predestined, planned for decades. Decades. Hard to get your mind around. That was kind of planned like a 9/11. 9/11 was planned before the building was even done with the architects. Long before it was built, it was Titanic, designed and built to sink. Okay, with an intended purpose all the way along. So with that in mind, uh, uh, is there something that these groups have in mind still for America? Some follow on to 9/11, the Titanic, Oklahoma City, whatever.
Something much
Very,
bigger.
very, very possible. And by the way, for anybody that's thinking bigger, well, would it actually, in reality, be bigger than COVID and a stolen vote and a presidency?
Point.
I actually don't think so. And I think in that sense, the big one's already been done. We're now in the process of scooping all that up and rodeoing it in. And the setup, you know, Shakespeare, those whom the gods would destroy, they must first villainize. Not the true single God in heaven, but the minor gods, the Greek gods, the demon gods. They have their little ways of working, but before they can act to take out certain people, they have to first villainize them. The people have to be in agreement. So you have a segment. This audience, probably in large measure, is not a fan of Brennan or Comey or Hillary or Obama. But the vast majority of the country, it's all over the map. So if you're going to proceed with some kind of criminal prosecutions and exposure of their dirty deeds, you first have to get the population up to speed, bring them to temperature before you really drop the hammer, take them into custody, send them to Gitmo, and start doing war crimes trials. So these shots from Tulsi and the Justice Department, stuff like that, are intended to warm the public up and prepare us for what's to come next, for these amazing revelations of what's occurred here. And that will take some time. And so is it weeks? I don't think so. Is it months? Yes. Is it years? No. As we get into the fall, more and more information will be able to be released. You'll have time to digest it. So Tulsi didn't put everything on the table on Thursday, Friday. She didn't put everything on the table today in the talk shows that she did today. She will release more stuff over the course of the next week or two. and into the fall. There'll be other revelations on multiple fronts at the same time. So for right now, the stuff that you're hearing is in a particular lane. Uh, uh, she released the stuff about the pre-planning within these agencies under Obama's supervision of changing the narrative about Trump to that he was getting help from Russia to get to power, and therefore his presidency was illegitimate. And they were the valiant, faithful few saving America. Remember at the Bush funeral, Bush one, and they got the envelopes. What was the context? There is an underground facility there that was being built at Arlington that was done under Bush's authority, Bush one, whose funeral it was. And they were going to leave that gathering and go into that bunker and then stage the coup against Trump from that secure location and take Trump out of power because he was in collusion with Russia, allegedly. And they got short stopped. And that facility got shut down. And that's why all the shock on their faces. Okay. They had a plan to, with all the stuff in preparation to villainize Trump as though he was in collusion with Russia, to then be justified to have a coup right there in DC, remove Trump from power and put him in prison. And then they'd have told you all these magical things that would have convinced the world that Trump was a traitor in collusion with Putin and had stolen the election in 2016 and was in power falsely, and they were there to save the world. Okay, that's the context of the kind of things that were going on. Now they've lost their moment. They're not in power. They're trying anything they can to hold on to it. What are they capable of? If anybody, Iran, China, North Korea, anybody had some way that they could take Trump out, that they could do a false flag big enough to throw the country into some kind of derision, they would do it. Because the alternative for them, it's an end of life scenario for them. They will go to Gitmo, and their last moments in this world might be at the end of a rope. There's no price that would be too high for us as a nation or the world to pay to buy them one more day in this world, because they know where they're going. So what could happen, what's possible? I've said, there's a near-death experience for America. I believe it's in our future, and it's a hand-to-God moment. We only get through that. God will not share his glory with any man, but for the hand of God, just like with President Trump. If he didn't intervene, step in somehow in some divine way, we might not survive this as a nation. So there's something big looming out there. It doesn't have to be an event like a meteorite or nuclear war or something like that. Just anything that would send us into some kind of a civil war that by degrees we'd start coming unraveled, and you just wouldn't be able to put the country fully back together again, Humpty Dumpty type. And that we miss that because of some assistance, foreknowledge, divine intervention. And that's literally this thing that, I pray that we have the grace, the divine protection, the scat. The bad guy gets away because he's got scat. He can jump the fence higher. He can run with longer steps. He has better insurance. He gets away. Okay. We need some scat to get out of the way of these monsters that are coming after us, because some of these dinosaurs are pretty fast. So, yeah. But I believe that God's got that in mind for us. We're going to get through this.
Yeah. And I think that's part of finesse too. I think there's been a lot of finesse. There were certain times where I thought this is going to get, kinetic, and it didn't happen. I was like, that is amazing, because I've been in a lot of situations where, you know, it was time to go kinetic, but we were able to just, you know, go by past it where we didn't have to go that route, and it worked out better. But you know, of course, we can go kinetic if we have to, and that's one of the things that I think President Trump brings to the table very, very nicely. But he doesn't do that. You know, he could definitely go super kinetic, but he doesn't.
Well, even what he did in Iran, Israel went and did all the stuff that they wanted to do, but when it got down to the final little piece that they couldn't do to save the world, not to save Israel solely, to save the world from Iran being able to threaten all of us all across the world at will from that little club with some dastardly, horrendous thing. He stopped them. He took the wind out of their sails. He's willing, but he's also measured. And he did it with the least human casualties possible, especially of innocent blood. And that's what he wants. You know, I talked about the Congo, you know, they had this attempt to take out the president. And so now we've got to change our schedules for stuff that we have to do. But why is the Congo so important to America? I mean, it's a Christian country. Over 90% of the population is Catholic or Protestant, and it's pretty evenly, about 45, 46% each. And then, you know, some other beliefs like that, not fully Muslim, but the deal is, I don't know if people understand this. In the last about 7 years, they've had 10 million people killed, murdered, slaughtered. Christians. We're a Christian country. This is our tribe. And that comes down to about 120, some months higher, some months lower, average of 120,000 people a month dying in the Congo because of this war. It's over the minerals in the ground, okay? And the people are poor because they're rich. They're probably the richest people on planet Earth per capita, but it's in the ground. They can't get it out. They don't have the infrastructure. And everybody's fighting over. You have a dozen countries, including Iran, for Pete's sakes, China, plus the countries right there, including South Africa, all in there to get their pound of flesh. And the world, how many people in this audience? When was it too many people? When it was 10,000 a month? When it was 20,000 a month? Why didn't you hear about it on CNN? Why didn't you hear about the people in Gaza? Why didn't you hear about it when it was 50,000 people a month dying in the Congo? And by the way, a lot of the people involved here are man-eaters out of neighboring countries. The pygmies are on an extinction pathway. The pygmies are smaller people. Full-grown man is, 5'4", 5'5". They're just small people. They live in the trees. When they get up in the morning, they're just thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to feed myself and my wife and kid? They don't think about going to the office, putting on the suit, shaving, whatever, because they're simple. They're very simple. They don't have a political class, so nobody's in parliament. Nobody's in their legislature. They're not on the city council. Are they not human? Because they're, 300 years behind the rest of us. Many of them, vast majority, are actually Christians. But they just have a different lifestyle. They lived off the land. My friend Bree Keaton, missionary there, she owns title deed to a lot of their land just to protect them. And so they've got like reservations, but the enemies come in and they'll they'll steal them away for slaves, sex slaves, work, and by the both male and female, and then they will, when they've worked them to death, kill them and eat them. Okay, because they think that the pygmies taste better, literally. So they're a delicacy for some of the tribes around that region, especially the ones out of Rwanda. So with that in mind, why didn't you hear about it when it was 100,000? The Western media doesn't cover it. In importance, it's this huge location where there's minerals that are needed for all over the world. China's been in there just reaming out the minerals with their own little secret operations and having other countries come in and grab stuff, and then they'll buy it on the side markets and ship it back to China. China's been, pushing a lot of this. And Iran, ISIS, M23, where do they get these names from? Things like that. So we have to stop that and get them to some point of relative stability. And that's what Trump wants to do. That's why that Trump has made it a huge thing, because if you don't feed the demons with the blood, it weakens them. The devil himself, he wants the death, he wants the blood, he wants the horror. And if we can stop the horrors in the world, Trump didn't start a war during his last term, and he's not about to start and preside over one now. That's, if you look everywhere that Trump's putting his hands, injecting himself, it's to stop the killing, and then we'll work out the details so we can start to, rebuild, bring health back in, and do whatever. If you come in and say you want help from Trump to continue a war and start a war and build a war, for example, in Ukraine, he's threatening Russia. I told you to stop the killing. If you're not going to stop, then I'll give these guys what they need to, go kill more of you until you decide you want to stop. And he's doing it to put an end to the killing. Did the same thing in Yemen. Blew all of their stuff apart there with some really big bombs to make a point. I want you to stop killing each other, and then we'll figure out how we're going to sort this out. So that's where he's at. That's you want to get in the mind of Trump. That's where he's at.
So who's pushing the slaughter in Africa? What group?
Everybody.
Everybody.
ANC is running South Africa. That's the ones where Trump, the president of South Africa, and his crew, his motley crew in their suits.
Oh yeah.
They're there in the Oval Office, and they want to, they're all prim and proper, and they're, and we're gonna, we want to do a trade deal, and the second largest trading partner in South Africa is America, and so and these tariffs are going to be a real problem, and so we just, we're here, Mr. President, we want to work a deal with you. And Trump shows the pictures of the murders, the horrors, okay? He literally pantsed the president of an entire country right there in front of the whole world. Showed the family jewels. You're freaking fucking up your whole country. You deserve to be pantsed. They're right there in front of the world. What an idiot, what a moron, what a shit for brains, okay? Yeah. What are you thinking? And we're not racist. Where would you get an idea like that? We're not racist. Oh shit!
Then you showed the crosses of white South Africans lining the road for miles. Yeah.
Well, and then they tried to say that they didn't know, he wasn't familiar. Laura Logan, she put that to rest, and others. But so with that in mind. You've got a number of countries in the region that are very similar, where they're in denial of what's going on in their country. Tikasheti there in the Congo has taken a different course. Look, just please help us stop the killing. You can have everything, just help us stop the killing. And the generals that are getting money on the side from China and from ANC and from other groups, people in the Senate, including the head of the Senate there, they're all in this collusive thing where they're getting money on the side at the expense of the rest of their citizenry. And so that just got nipped in the bud. They're going to be doing arrests, into the morning today. It's already morning there, and trying to nip that in the bud. And then again, try to work towards how do we stop the killing and start to work our way out of this. They got all the wealth in the ground. They just need it to not go to China. You go into downtown Kinshasa, in the capital there, and it's all Chinese buildings. And it's, 5-star hotel. You go, just like DC here, you go, a mile out of town, it's like a, third world country. Same thing in as you have in South Africa and other places. Go next door to Uganda. China came in, helped build a huge dam in there at the top of the Nile. And now the people in Uganda are beholden to China for a lot of it. We're going to buy them out of that. But that's part of the reason they're doing the stuff they're doing there. So, it's a process. But under Trump, even with the South Africans, there's a breakaway group that wants to break off a portion, about 15% of South Africa down at the Cape Hope area, and start their own country on the same basis, Bill of Rights type basis as America had when we broke off from England. And for freedom, including religious freedom. And I think that they have a good shot. They've got over 850,000 votes from people in that region to break away from the ANC government and to break off that portion of South Africa to get away from the murder and death and insanity. So,
I'm glad you're speaking about that, because we're seeing that President Trump is for the world, and it's all interrelated. So if you just focus on America, you're not seeing the bigger picture, because so many people came in and tried to steal our election, like China and like a handful of other countries. So
and by the way, Michael, let me interrupt you for 1 second. Those people can only take this shot, even with the pressure from within their own population during the Trump administration. They've been doing this buildup to break off during the Obama and Biden administrations. And during the first Trump administration, remember, Trump was fully bogged down with the Russia stuff. So he couldn't focus on these things that he wanted to do around the world. This time around is different. So those people in the breakaway area, the Cape Hope exit area, they've got I think, a short window to do what they need to do, and then to stabilize their situation after a vote while Trump is still in power. And that's, it's a pretty lofty goal, very similar to what the settlers did here in America when they said, okay, we're done. We have to have, Declaration of Independence because of abuses, longstanding, that can no longer be tolerated. We as a people deserve our independence. And by the way, I was just up in Plymouth the other day. I was standing on the first street where the Mayflower unloaded. I was in the building that was the first building built by the Pilgrims after they landed there in Plymouth. Great guy. Oh, you got to get him up. Jerry. Fantastic guy. He owns the house that was the first house built by the Pilgrims right there where the Mayflower landed. I mean, this guy is so fun. I'll set that up with you too. You got to interview him. Fantastic information there.
Love history like that. Beautiful.
Yeah. So, okay. What else anything else I should answer for you, bro?
Yeah. So I'm curious, we've seen a lot of action from Israel, more than ever. They've gone after Hamas, Hezbollah. They've gone after Iranian, which is Iran, which is basically the main culprit. But also now they're going into Syria and stopping some of the genocide that's going on there. So what is going on? That's pretty.
Well, let me just add this to this conversation. Iran is the one that was shipping in the missiles by the hundreds of thousands across northern Syria into Lebanon, and they had 300,000. Think it's a number that's just hard to even fathom. 300,000 missiles with a range into central Israel, all across Lebanon. They had 100,000 missiles hidden within the Gaza area to fire into Israel. So that there was some kind of a very real extinction level capability against Israel, fueled by Iran. There within that range of Israel. Iran was the one behind all that. And then Iran was backing, a portion of the regime in Syria in this takeover that had happened there, and they were, building up as an alternative to Gaza, and some of the stuff. But remember in Lebanon, you had the huge explosion in Beirut, and that explosion. I told your audience about that. There was a fertilizer, a ship carrying fertilizer, ammonium nitrate, from Russia. It got seized because it didn't have the right paperwork, and magically ended up at the port there in Beirut. Now, that material can be processed and used to make rocket fuel. That's exactly what was being done. They had an underground facility at the port near where that ship was, and they were processing, was a German manufacturing system, very extensive, that was building or was processing that ammonium nitrate with other chemicals to make rocket fuel. See, when they ship all the rockets over from Iran, they don't have fuel in them. And so they ship the missile bodies from Iran over into Lebanon and then up over into Gaza. And they'd have to fuel them at the site. So they're literally taking truckloads of fuel out to where the rockets are, fueling them. And now you have a real rocket that can be used against Israel. When Beirut had the huge explosion, you'd actually notice, if you go back and look at it closely, you had a smaller explosion that then was followed by a much bigger explosion, and that was the material that was in the warehouse next door. The smaller explosion was the underground facility and the rocket fuel. And that's a pretty vertical cloud there coming out the shafts that went in there, and that underground facility. And then the larger explosion, as that flame front reached with the right pressures, the larger accumulation of fuel there, then you had that huge, relatively soft explosion. The first one was very sharp because you had processed fuels. The detonation rate of detonation was very high. And then a softer detonation of the unprocessed fuel, the ammonium nitrate. But it was so devastating to Beirut and to the region.
Yeah, you're demolition too. Good job. Wow. I was a demolition expert, and you really just lined it all out. Perfect. Good job.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but yep. Iran was behind that. Wow. If you're going to let Iran come in there and have the money, remember Obama gave them the millions of dollars, the pallets of cash to continue with their weapons program. Mm-hmm. That came from Obama to allow them to continue to be a threat to the world. When we get to the Obama trials, that's going to come up. And by the way, the aircraft that was used to ship that money over there, that was hijacked from a Trump supporter. And that's part of the stuff that'll come out later. And a number of other aircraft. A person that spent a couple years in prison on false charges that, you know, were never put to paper. Imprisoned, and he couldn't even, you know, go to a court or do anything because nothing was ever perfected by an actual court or anything else. These people, the very ones that we're talking about now, Brennan, Comey, Obama himself, had a Trump supporter imprisoned for 2 years and his wealth hijacked in order to help Iran and ship the money over there on his own aircraft. It's a horrible thing. The stuff that you're going to learn about cannot be allowed to stand, and they're war crimes. Because if you fund Iran to be able to build those missiles and to maintain those rat lines of supply, is that kind of a war crime too? They were being prepared for an attack on Israel that could have devastated. Would the Golden Dome be capable of stopping tens of thousands of missiles every wave? No. Even with the laser systems they have, with the SMRs and the vehicles that they have, there is a limit to the number of strikes an hour that they're capable of making. And, you know, they just didn't have the vehicles to do that. So, you know, is Obama a contributor to the war crimes that Iran's been doing out around the world? I think that's going to come out. I think that's the way we're going to remember this history. And I still think the imagery that I've pushed, Trump as the megador. You know, remember last year there was a big push against anti-MAGA, and MAGA's wrong and nobody can support it. People around Trump can't be MAGA. That was even in Trump's inner circle. I don't want any MAGA people around President Trump. That was in his inner circle, being ostracized. At the end of the day, it's all MAGA. Trump to push them, and he is the megador. You know, as Roseanne said, forget the bullshit, kill the bull. And that's exactly what Trump's doing. That's the way we'll remember him. That's the way I'll remember him.
Beautiful. Yep. So last question for you. Thanks for coming on and spending all this time with us. Very, very revelatory, all the stuff this is one of your, I keep saying this is one of your best, but you know, you just keep overproducing. So good job. But
well, let me just add this, Michael. I hate to interrupt you, but let me just add this. It's getting easier because stuff that I explained, now you're seeing more of the reality of it coming to pass. Yeah. So it's less speculative. You're seeing things that I told you would happen and had to happen coming into being now. And it's going to be more and more so. In fact, you know, my relevance is probably going to go down because we've already told you what's going to happen. It starts happening. You don't need me to tell you that. You're going to want to listen to the latest news stories. So I might be able to go back and just work on my cars or my
I doubt it. I think we're going to be involved for several more years going forward. And I think this has got to be every year. I'm like, this is going to be the end. Like it keeps going, but I see it continuing, unfortunately. But we have done shows very like over 5 years ago. We started doing shows together, I think, and we did them here on YouTube. Now, one of the things you were just talking about, you know, Lebanon. I'd been in Lebanon. I knew that place inside out, and I knew the situation that was going on there. I talked about it in detail, and YouTube took that down. And eventually, of course, YouTube actually completely took me down. I'm very happy that you've been consistent with Nino. Nino's done an excellent job of keeping his YouTube channel and keeping everybody going. Now that I'm back on YouTube, which surprises me, and here we are talking openly about a lot of things that in the past we would not have been able to. What do you think? Do I have some kind of special credit score now with the, you know, 3-letter agencies that maybe or something else going on here? Why am I able to do this now?
You know, things are changing. If you look at who YouTube really is and who's behind it and their facilities and like that,
Yeah.
it's not as benign as one would otherwise think. The location of their true facilities is right underneath another location that had a different purpose on top. You're really looking at stuff that's got a military component to it. And we've recaptured some of the controls there. I think you're going to see more of that. And also, the ability to choke this down is going away. So I think you're going to get a better path moving forward than you've had. And that's going to continue because the public's going to demand it. It's a natural outcome of where we're at right now. They cannot keep the cork in this bottle any longer.
Fantastic. Wow. The answer I wanted to hear. Yeah. So I felt that, but you know, hearing it from your lips sometimes is better.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks so much.
Well, I would like to talk about that at some point in time. I don't know that it's now,
Yeah.
but there's some really interesting stuff that I'd love to share about YouTube.
Oh yeah.
At some point in time that when it's appropriate, I'd love to go into the details and give the long version of the origins and history of YouTube.
Well, you did a really good
Oh
job.
my
with
gosh, that would
Facebook.
be fun. A Zuckerberg moment.
Very good. Look forward to that.
All right.
When it's appropriate, because there's a lot of stuff that, you know,
Yeah.
we'd love to talk about, but it's not time yet. So it's good.
Yep. 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 All things in due course.
Absolutely. All right, Juan. Thank you so much. And people can reach you. I mean, I've gotten the latest silver coins you have out there. I've gotten all your silver coins. So I know you and I both believe silver's the way, but not everybody's still on board with that yet. But how can people reach you?
Well, we have silver over at gumroad.com for kind of the larger orders, and then the stuff over at thejennifermac.com for the smaller orders, and then other stuff that she has. And by the way, how relevant might the dead man mocking imagery be somewhere in the not too distant
we were
future?
in the chat. We were talking about that. Very good. Yes, sir. People are on to that now.
That's one of the great pieces of art that Jennifer's ever done. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
But there's so many cool things that have happened there, and you probably haven't received yet, but you have a shirt coming. When I know I'll get a text from you. You'll die when you see it. It's gonna be be epic. We'll have to have you wear that the next one. So anyway.
Yeah, I'll wear it in the next show. Yeah, definitely.
So I've got to go to a meeting. They're waiting for me. I appreciate getting a chance to do stuff with you tremendously, bro.
Yeah, so is everybody else.
I enjoy your audience. You know,
absolutely.
So
enjoy you too.
All right, bro.
All right.
See you next time. Love that, man. That was great.